Dear second year students, in the last class I gave you the introduction to the poem Daffodils. Today I will begin the poem, start the poem, and you will listen to me when you come across this video. Very attentive, you should be very attentive, very meticulous, very serious, very earnest. You know, to receive something out of the video, out of seeing the video, to be sung to you. So this is the poem Daffodils. I have given very beautiful introduction to the poem. And again I want to say, the nature is something that can lift our spirit and moral. It can lift our spirit and moral. And there is a mystic bond. There is a mystic bond between man and nature, between the human beings and nature. And William Wordsworth has unfolded this chapter, unfolded this thing in the poem Daffodils. Not a small poem. I have told you, he had been to his friend's house with his sister Dorothy. While he was coming back home, he went to the Lake District and found the presence of the daffodils, which attracted him very much. The poet was not mesmerized. They had no necromantic attachment with the poet, rather seeing the natural beauty of the flowers, seeing the beauty of nature, natural beauty of the flowers, the poet is attracted towards these flowers. They look golden. These flowers look golden. Their color is golden, charming color, very beautiful color. And how the poet has been fascinated by the beauty, towards the beauty, how he has been attracted towards the beauty is the essence of the poem. And many things are there related. The power of divinity, the divine power. Because in nature we find the presence of God. Nature is the healer, nature is all in all, for William Wordsworth. One impulse from Hornell would make teach you more of man. He has pointed out once, one impulse from Hornell would teach you more of man. So nature is all in all of him. In each and every poem, nature poem of William Wordsworth, we see the nature is the most apparent feature. Nature is the most apparent feature in each and every nature poem of William Wordsworth. The poet of Romantic Revivalism, who appeared in the literary annals in the early part of the 19th century, the pioneer of the Romantic Revivalism, the lead poet of the period, the Romantic period, which has been revived in the 19th century, the 16th century romance, the 16th century romantic sensibility, the 16th century romantic idea has been revived in the 19th century. That is why it is called romantic revivalism, or that is called romantic period. In this period, William Wordsworth is a lead poet, a versatile genius, a distinguished writer, a prolific writer, Prolific, prolific, a prolific writer, a prolific poet, writing on the power of divinity and the power of the divine, the power of the divine. Anyhow, we'll come to the first line of the poem. I wander lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills. These lines, 2 lines. I am giving 2 lines. I wander lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills. William Wordsworth has brought a coordination between earth and the heaven, you mark. In the first 2 lines of the poem, we find a coordination. We find a sweet blending. We find a sweet association between the earth and the heaven. He was wandering on the earth and he compared himself with the piece of cloud in the sky or in the heaven. In poetry, sky is heaven, heaven is sky. In poetry also. You mark, he was wandering just on the ground. He was wandering just on the surface of the earth. He was wandering. Just like a nomad, just like a gypsy, just like a tramp, he was wandering. In which way he was wandering? He has already made a comparison. That comparison is nothing but a simile, S-I-M-I-L-E, simile. It is an explicit comparison. It is an explicit comparison between 2 unlike things. Unlike things. A man cannot be compared. A man will be compared with another man, no doubt, but that cannot be a simile. A simile comes when there is a comparison between 2 unsimilar things, unlike things. The simile comes. So this is very beautiful comparison he has already made. He compared himself with the piece of a floating cloud. With a piece of a floating cloud, he compared himself. So that is why in the first line of the poem there is a simile. While writing this poem, Wordsworth has pointed out that he has never tried his best to give poetic devices, to apply poetic devices, rhetoric devices, literary devices, rhetoric and prosody. He does not like to apply all these things. He does not like to inculcate. He does not like to instill all these things, but automatically they have come. You mark in the first line of the poem there is a simile, which is nothing but a literary device. That is a poetic device. Dear students, rhetoric device is also there. Rhetoric, R-H-E-T-O-R-I-C. Rhetoric device is also there. So under rhetoric device category, many literary devices come, many poetic devices come. Rhetoric device is also part and parcel of literary device. Rhetoric device is the part and parcel, very integral, very indispensable. So far as the very indispensable of the literary device, poetic device, all these things. So he has already brought a coordination, the coordination between the earth and heaven. You mark. I wandered lonely as a cloud. He was wandering lonely, solitarily. He was in the world of loneliness because he has never given the list of. He has never given anything. He has never told anything about his sister Dorothy, who was with him. Most of his poems have already carried some lines about Dorothy, his loving sister, who was left. When his father died, mother died, most of the members of his family died, he was left with his sister Dorothy, and the loving sister, very affectionate, and she loved her brother, and the brother also had immense love for her. Finally, he wanted to make a tour, long tour. He took Dorothy with him. So here in the poem, he has another glimpse, he has another given any hints about Dorothy, what he was telling, that he was wandering just like a piece of a cloud, floating cloud. He was wandering lonely, nobody was with him, lonely. In a world of loneliness, he was wandering lonely. In the world of desolation, in this hollow world, hollow, actually in this hollow world, we are the hollow man. T.S. Eliot has pointed out. In this hollow world, we are the hollow man. So on this hollow earth, on the surface of this hollow earth, the poet was wandering just like a nomad. He was wandering just like a gypsy, just like a tramp, little tramp. And finally came across a host of golden daffodils. The writer will tell you. The writer will also tell you. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over valleys and hills. You mark. That cloud was floating over valley and over the hills, over the hillocks, over the mountains, over the mount. The cloud was floating. You see the first line. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over valleys and hills. He was roaming just like a piece of a cloud which was moving just over the valley, the hillock, the hill, the mount. You mark, the simile has already become lengthy. The simile has already become lengthy. And that simile may be a long-tailed simile. One of our professors told about the long-tailed simile. While he taught there in PG class, he taught us in PG class. No such word is written in the book of literary terms. No such word is written there in the book of literary terms by M.H. Abrams or by Jacob Abraham, Caroli writer, M.H. Abrams. They have never mentioned anything about the long-tailed simile. But the simile has become lengthy. It is lengthy. When the simile has become lengthy, it has a tail. But the simile lamba hai jai ସେତେବେଳେ ତାର ଗୋଟେ ଲାଞ୍ଜ ବାହାରି ଅଛି ତେଣୁ ସେଇଥିପାଇଁ କହନ୍ତି ଇଟ୍ ଇଜ୍ ଏ ଲଙ୍ଗ ଟେଲ୍ଡ ସିମିଲି ପ୍ରଫେସର କହିଥିଲେ ଆମକୁ ପିଜିରେ କ୍ଲାସ୍ କଲାବେଳେ ମୁଁ ସେଇଥିପାଇଁ ମନେ ଅଛି ସେ କଥାଟା ମୁଁ ତମକୁ କହୁଛି and the poet wanted to say I wandered lonely the line is in the past form you mark I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over that floats on I wandered lonely the line carries the past form and that floats carries present form you mark because normally the clouds float above our head in the sky that over the hills over the mountains over the hillocks over the valley over the jungle everywhere and the poet wanted to keep a rapport R-A-P-P-O-R-T. The poet wanted to keep a rapport, keep a coordination, keep a sweet blending, keep an association with the earth and the heavenly world. Because Wordsworth is a worldly man, earthly man, worldly man. The piece of a cloud belongs to heaven. The piece of cloud belongs to heaven. And how coordination has been made? Because we have been created, we have been begotten by the glad grace of God. We have been begotten by the glad grace of God. And our souls, part and parcel, are parts and parcel. They are parts of the bigger soul, the soul of God. And a time comes when we will mingle with the vast soul of God. So that is why every moment, in every moment of life, every step of life, every walk of life, Wordsworth has kept connection with. He has kept his rapport with the power of divine power. So that is why in the first line of the poem, he has given a sweet blending and a sweet coordination. So in the beginning I have told you, this is a mystic bond. This is a mystic bond between nature and the human being. Very important poem, dear students. You cannot ignore. Very important poem, very important poem. A small lyrical poem, I have told you, it is written in iambic tetrameter form, 6 lines in each stanza, and there is a couplet in every stanza. 4 stanzas are there. There is a couplet in every stanza. The last 2 lines are a couplet. The last 2 lines are, if these 2 lines are in inverted commas, that can take each singular form. The last 2 lines are a couplet because they rhyme each other, and the rhyme scheme is ABABCC. The rhyme scheme is ABABCC. ABAB first 4 lines and CC is the couplet. CC is the couplet. And the poem was written in 1807. That was written in 1807. That had a symbolic meaning, rebirth, renascence or resurrection, a symbolic meaning. I have given you the botanical name, and the tune of the poem is joyful and contemplation. The tune of the poem is joyful and contemplation, or contemplative, you may say, contemplative, the tune of the poem, joyful, mystic bond, mysterious bond. You feel, you think, what the life is. Very mysterious creation. So, you come to the second line, that floats on high over vales and hills. A piece of clouds moves, in which way? Being compelled by the wind. Being compelled by the wind. The piece of a cloud floats. It floats endlessly. It has no objective, it has no aim, like that of the poet. The poet was wandering aimlessly. He was wandering aimlessly by the pressure of his imagination. He was compelled by his own imaginary sensibility, imaginative sensibility. He was pressurized. And he went to the Lake District. He went to the Lake District, all of a sudden. Something urged upon him. Something urged upon him to do this. What is something I cannot say? Something urged upon him. Very important, you mark. And when all at once I saw a crowd. Second line. When all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. All on a sudden at once. All of a sudden, within the twinkle of an eye, within a very short time, within a short span of time, he come across a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, a large number of golden daffodils, a large number. He is marked. Where have they been bloomed? Where are they? Now they are beside the lake and beneath the tree. The poet would say. They are beside the lake and beneath the tree. They have a special attraction for the poet and his poetic mind. He has a special attraction for the poet. Now that these flowers have a special attraction for the poet and his poetic mind. So the poet wants to say, number one, I wandered lonely as a cloud in the world of loneliness. Solitarily he was wandering. And finally came across these daffodils, a host of golden daffodils. In which way he was wandering? He was wandering just like a piece of cloud, aimlessly he was wandering. He had no objective. But something urged him to come. Something pressurized him to come. What is something? You feel it. What is something? Maybe imagination. Maybe the power of a divine that has compelled him to do so. So the poet tells all these things in two lines. And the third line is, when all at once I saw a crowd, a large number of crowd, immense, innumerable, immense, a large number, vast amount. He saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. So, I saw a crowd. Normally, we use crowd where we use crowd in case of, in support of the human beings. Crowd. Hard is used, H-E-R-D, hard is used in support of, or in case of the kettle. Hard of a kettle, a crowd. But the poet has used crowd word. You mark the term crowd is used in this case for daffodils. Maybe personification. I am not telling you. It may be personification here. Not yet used that crowd. I saw a crowd. What is that crowd? A host of golden daffodils. A host of golden daffodils. Golden daffodils. Daffodils are golden. The look golden. Sometimes metaphorical. I cannot ignore. Because he saw a large number of daffodils. Many daffodils. And these daffodils are golden. Their color is golden. And a golden color normally attracts the mind. Because the mind wants to quench the thirst. The poet is thirsty. The poet is hungry. And he wants to quench his hunger. He wants to quench his thirst. Fulfill his thirst. That is why he has already come to this particular place. He has come to this spot where daffodils are tossing and dancing. They are in a gay mood. The nature is gay. The nature is jubilant. The nature is powerful. The nature is healer. The nature is an apparent picture. The nature is all in all. You see, you go through his poems. The prelude, 14 books. Prelude, from 1 to 14. He has written 14 prelude books. each and every book is an epic, EPIC. Each and every book is an epic. That epic is about the development of his mind in relation to the perpetual power, the perennial power of nature. In each and every prelude, book 1, book 2, book 3, like this, it will go up to book 14. 14 खंड बही प्रिल्यूड बही सब गुड़ा प्रकृति पूरा लिखा जाए एंड हिज मेंटल डेवलपमेंट साइकोलॉजिकल एंड स्पिरिचुअल डेवलपमेंट द पॉइंट इज गिवन इज साइकोलॉजिकल एंड स्पिरिचुअल डेवलपमेंट सो दिस पर्टिकुलर पीस इज not a record of events. Daffodils is not a record of events or of documents, you mind. It is not a personal record of William Wordsworth. It is his poetic experience which is calculated much, that counts much. The experience, that is important. The poem is not at all subjective, but it is an objective poem, leading towards the poetic experience, which is important. मैं छुआ माने ये कविता गोटे सब्जेक्टिव कविता नुहे जो थे कि वर्ड्सवर्थ निज कथा कहते एटा गोटे ऑब्जेक्टिव कविता कारण जो पोएटिक एक्सपीरियंस काव्यिक अनुभूति एंड दैट काउंट्स मच दिस इज नॉट एट ऑल a subjective poem, a personal poem, but the poem is impersonal and objective. Because one thing is prominent, one thing is evident, that is a poetic experience. That is a poetic relation, poetic experience, which is very important in the poem. So, in the first line, he says, "You wanders just like a piece of cloud, which moves just over the hills and the valley, mountains, and coming closer to the lake district, he sees a host of golden daffodils, which have a special attraction for him. He cannot but see the beauty of the nature. Nature is all powerful. Nature is the truth. Nature is God. Nature is beautiful. So, in the next class, I will tell you all these things. Thank you all.